So now we're going to do some factoring by decomposition. So imagine that you were given y equals 6x squared plus 7x plus 2. And we wanted to actually go ahead and factor that by decomposition. So we know we're going to have to use decomposition because you can see that the leading coefficient isn't 1. So we're really good at factoring when the leading coefficient is 1, but here it's not. So with decomposition, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take the coefficients from the a and the c term, which in this case is 6 and 2. We're going to multiply that. We're going to find that AC equals 12. So this is what AC is. And then we're going to look at the b coefficient, which in this case is 7. So that is our b coefficient. So I'll just put this over here maybe and say, okay, there's 7 and that's b. So what we need to do is we need to find two numbers that multiply to 12, and those same two numbers, they add up to 7. So we can start with the basics. So if we think, all right, 12 and 1. So if I did 12 plus 1, we're going to get, well, that's 13, which is clearly not 7. So that's not good. And then the next one will probably be maybe 2 times 6. So 2 times 6 is going to be 12, which is so 2 plus 6. Well, that's 8, so that's not 7. And then we're thinking, all right, 3 times 4. 3 times 4 works. So 3 times 4 is 12, but 3 plus 4, well, that's actually, it is 7. So we know that that's going to be what we're going to need to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that 3 and the 4, and we are going to decompose this middle term. So what's going to look like, we're going to leave the initial term unchanged, so it's going to be 6x squared. We're going to decompose this into the two numbers. It doesn't matter which one goes first, so I'm going to say plus 3x and plus 4x. If you did plus 4x plus 3x would be all good. And then the c term is going to stay the same, so that's plus 2. So what makes this allowable is that if we look at the 3 and the 4, we add those up, and that's 7. So what we're doing is we're just splitting this 7, but we're doing it in a really special way. The reason we're going to do it in a special way is because the second step for factoring by decomposition is going to be look for the greatest common factor of your leading two terms. So in this case, the greatest common factor of 6 and 3 is 3. The greatest common factor of x squared and x is, of course, x. So we're going to pull that out of the first two terms. So 6x squared divided by 3x is 2x. 3x divided by 3x, actually that's 1. So we're going to have that. And then we're going to look for the greatest common factor of the second two terms. So the greatest common factor of 4x and 2 is just 2. And 4x divided by 2 is 2x. And 2 divided by 2 is, of course, 1. If we have done this correctly, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to have is we're going to have 2x plus 1 and 2x plus 1. What we have left in our brackets will always match. If it doesn't match, we've made a mistake. So we're going to actually continue with the factoring, and we're going to end up with, I'm going to common factor the 2x plus 1 out of both terms. So we're going to have 2x plus 1. And I'm going to be left with, well, I'm left with a 3x plus 2. So I'm going to write out that we're going to have 3x plus 2. And what we've done is we've actually taken and we have factored 6x squared plus 7x plus 2, and we've ended up down here with 2x plus 1 times 3x plus 2. If we want to do a check, of course, what we can do is we can then take and we can multiply those back out, gather the like terms, and make sure that we got back what we started with. So let's do that really, really quickly. So 2x times 3x is 6x squared. 2x times 2 is 4x. 1 times 3x is 3x, and then 1 times 2 is 2. We're going to gather our like terms. This is the only x squared term, so it's still just 6x squared. And we're going to have a 4x and a 3x, which adds up to, of course, 7x. And then we're going to have plus 2. And if we check, what we can actually see is, in fact, those two actually match, so that we know that, in fact, that is the factored form of 6x squared plus 7x plus 2. If we needed to, then we could go on and go ahead and get our roots if that's what we were desiring, and we know that our roots are going to be when we set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So I'm going to take the first factor, we're going to have 2x plus 1, and that's going to be equal to 0. I'm going to solve that, pop the 1 over, so we're going to get 2x equals negative 1, divide both sides by 2, divide by 2, and we're going to find out that, in fact, x equals negative a half. Then we can do the same thing with the other factor. So we're going to take 3x plus 2, set it equal to 0, and we're going to find that that's 3x equals negative 2, divide both sides by 3, divide by 3, and we're going to get x equals negative 2/3. So we've gone from a polynomial, in this case a quadratic, with a leading term other than 1, and we've gone ahead and we've fully factored it by using decomposition, and then we've taken those factors and we've gone ahead and we've turned those into roots.